Good afternoon, everyone out there, and I hope I'm audible for everyone. Yeah, I think so. So, how are you guys doing? So today we will have class from 2:30 to 4:30, right? And before we proceed, just one announcement. For next 2 weeks, this week, this is the last class I have with you. For next 2 weeks, I will be taking class in this online mode only. And after 2 weeks, we'll meet in the offline mode. So whosoever is coming for the offline classes, as far as my classes are concerned, just for next 2 weeks, we will have classes in the online mode. So whatever 5, 6 classes in the next another 2 weeks that we have, we will be meeting in this online mode, and post the second week, that is to be very precise, first week of March. From the first week of March, we will meet in the offline mode. Okay, so let's continue. Just one thing. Yesterday, I had the essay session with respect to the analysis of this year's topics. So I have analyzed 4 philosophical topic and the detailed PPT, as in the content. I've written complete content of essays with different introductions, different type of conclusions, how to approach philosophical topic, and the entire PPT is available on my Telegram channel. So you can go and refer to those PPTs and just go through those slides whenever you have free time, just to get an idea that how the philosophical topics needs to be approached, right? Because you have to be prepared for the worst scenario again, that maybe again all 8 topics are asked from the philosophical lines. Why am I saying worst? Because thoda sa ek mental inertia hai that if you get philosophical topics, it becomes challenging. But trust me, once you get the hang of what is supposed to be done, then it is a cakewalk. So it would not be a difficult thing. Trust me, out of those 8 topics, choosing any 2 topics, you will be in a comfortable position, provided you have practiced enough so that that inertia is not there as far as philosophical topics are concerned. So for that, you can refer to my Telegram channel, and there I have uploaded the detailed PPT. Okay, so we have finished communalism, and in today's lecture we have to start with regionalism. So very quickly we will take up the topic of regionalism. This is, just make this flow chart, then I'll proceed. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just read it out for you. If it is, I hope it is visible, right? What I've written under regionalism is, what is the concept of region? What is concept of regionalism? Within that, politics of regionalism. Within that, the positive and the negative aspect. Then landmarks which led to the emergence of regionalism in context of India in post-independence period. Then basis of regionalism, types of regionalism, positive, negative impact of regionalism. ठीक है? Under concept of region, I have written, it is a homogeneous area which is physically, culturally distinct from the neighboring areas. People have the awareness that they are similar. However, they are different from the people of other regions. इतना लिखा है. Once you have written this and you've made this flowchart, let me know. I'll continue. Can we proceed now? The flowchart would be right there. Let's just continue with the discussion. See, the first thing that I have written here is, what do you mean by the concept of region? So region is defined as a homogeneous area which is physically and culturally distinct from the neighboring areas, right? And the people of a particular region, they have the consciousness or the awareness that since they belong to the same region, they are similar. At the same time, they are culturally distinct from the people who are belonging to different region or some other region. Okay? Now, based on this consciousness or awareness that the people of one particular region are similar, however, they are different from the people of other region, based on this consciousness or awareness, they develop what is known as regional identity. That is, they develop their identity based on the region in which they are residing. And once you develop the identity based on region, then you start professing your political loyalties. Political loyalties more towards the region rather than the nation or the state of which that region is a part of. And this concept of professing your political loyalties more towards the region rather than the state or the nation is referred as regionalism. Is that clear? I'll again reiterate. The concept of regionalism is derived from the concept of region. Region is a homogeneous area which is physically, as in the geographical aspect of it, physically, culturally distinct from the neighboring areas. And the people who are inhabiting a particular region, let us say A, they have the consciousness of the fact that since they are habitating a region, they are similar among themselves, but they are culturally distinct from the people of the neighboring areas, neighboring regions. And because of this consciousness, their identity is rooted in the region to which they are belonging to. Is that clear? Once you develop your identity based on the region, you start professing your political loyalties. That is, your political loyalties is more towards the region. I belong to UP, I belong to Bihar, I belong to Maharashtra, or within Maharashtra also, or within UP also, Western UP, Eastern UP. Did you get my point? Right? So the point here is that when you have developed your identity based on the region, then you start professing your political loyalties towards that region rather than nation or the state of which that region is a part of. And once you start professing your political loyalties more towards that region, that concept is known as regionalism. Is this clear for everyone? लिखो यही जो बोला है. There is nothing to dictate. I have written everything on the screen. Next point, write down. In context of India, regionalism is rooted. In context of India, regionalism is rooted in India's diversity. No Shiva, no, not necessary. That is why the politics of regionalism has positive and negative aspect of it. There is no harm in having your identity based on a region, provided it is not antithetical to the nation's identity or the purpose of national interest. If it is cooperative federalism, let us say, okay, so you are accommodating your federal sentiments when you are associating your identity with a particular region. So ऐसा necessarily नहीं है that it would always be pitted against the interest of the nation at large. But yes, sometimes it does. So that is the negative aspect. So per se, regionalism per se is not a negative term. It depends what is the basis of your regionalism. What methods you are being resorting to in order to practice your regionalism, how you are professing your regionalism, that will determine whether it is a positively connoted term or it is a negatively connoted term. Is that clear, Shivam? Shivam, just give me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll answer your question more in detail when I'm discussing politics of regionalism. Next statement. Regionalism is rooted in India's diversity. See, regionalism, Shivam, I'm answering your question as well. See, regionalism is bound to happen in India. Why? Because the concept of regionalism is rooted in India's diversity. Whether that diversity is with respect to language, caste, ethnicity, religion. So when the fact of the matter is that we are diverse, and regionalism in context of India is rooted in India's diversity. So regionalism is bound to happen in India. Now, instead of going against the concept of regionalism, we should try to look at it from the perspective that how regionalism should be practiced in a manner that it is not threatening national integration. It is not going against the nation's interest. It is accommodating nation's interest, right? So the point here is regionalism is rooted in India's diversity with respect to language, caste, religion, ethnicity, etc. When these factors get geographically concentrated along with the feeling of relative deprivation, it is known as regionalism, or it gives rise to regionalism. Is that clear? Is this clear for everyone? Regionalism is rooted in India's diversity with respect to language, caste, religion, ethnicity, etc. When all these factors get geographically concentrated along with a feeling of relative deprivation, it is known as regionalism. Clear hai? Now, the politics of regionalism can be understood at two levels, positive and negative. Let me answer this first. I have already told you the concept of regionalism is rooted in India's diversity. In the very first lecture of society, we have talked about that in context of Indian society, we follow salad bowl theory of multiculturalism. That is, we give you enough opportunity to preserve your own individual distinct culture and identity. Okay. Now, if you feel your unique cultural identities is getting discriminated, dominated, and hence to concretize your cultural identity, unique cultural identity, if you resort to regionalism, it is not a threat to national integration. For example, linguistic reorganization of states. For example, linguistic reorganization of states. So if you feel that your unique cultural identity is getting discriminated, dominated, you on the basis of your cultural identity are getting marginalized, and in order to concretize your unique cultural identity, if you are resorting to regionalism, then it would not be seen as a threat to national integration, because that is what we have promised you. We have promised that in context of Indian society, we are going to follow the salad bowl theory of multiculturalism, where we will give you enough space, enough opportunities to preserve, protect, perpetuate your own individual cultural identities. Is that very clear? So in that context, it would not be seen as a threat to national integration. Is the first point clear for everyone out there? ठीक है. Similarly, in a country, everybody has a right to have equal share in the process of development, right? So, in order to avail better opportunities for purpose of socio-economic development, if you are resorting to regionalism, it is absolutely not a threat to national integration. For example, creation of Telangana. If to avail better opportunities for socio-economic development, you are resorting to regionalism, then it would not be seen as a threat to national integration. For example, you believe, let us say you believe that within this setup of large state, your region is not getting sufficient funds, sufficient infrastructure, sufficient opportunity. The people of your region are not getting adequately represented in educational institution, in job opportunities, and then you are demanding autonomy or a separate state. Then it would not be seen as a threat to national integration, because you have a right, you have the right to be entitled to equal opportunities for socio-economic development, being the citizen of this country. Is that very clear for everyone? Okay. Similarly, third point, if for the purpose of administrative convenience or for the purpose of good governance, you are resorting to regionalism, even then it would not be considered as a threat to national integration. For example, creation of Uttarakhand. because it was perceived that the administration of hill areas is different from that of plain areas. So Uttarakhand was carved out of Uttar Pradesh. Similarly, incorporation of 5th schedule, 6th schedule. Is this very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? In these respect, it would not be seen as a threat to national integration. Clear hai? Is the positive aspect of regionalism clear? That how not always regionalism is a threat to national integration. Per se, as a concept, it is not a threat to national integration because it is bound to happen in context of India because we are extremely diverse. And no two region can be equally developed. Obviously, ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता ना कि exactly it would be equally developed. So when you are diverse, when all those factors gets geographically concentrated and there is lack of equal development, so there will always be a feeling of relative deprivation. And wherever there is a feeling of relative deprivation, you tend to retaliate, you tend to resent. The resentment can take various forms. You can demand a separate state in order to concretize your identity. You can demand a separate state with respect to administrative convenience or good governance or for the purpose of socio-economic development. Is this very clear? However, any demand for regionalism, even if this is the basis, but any demand for regionalism which is based on violence, where you are resorting to violence, or that demand is communal in nature, or you are demanding secession, that is, you are threatening the territorial integrity of India, or you are resorting to son of soil policy. In all these four capacities, it would be seen as a threat to national integration. That is the negative aspect of regionalism. Vaibhav, give me example. Give me example. हाँ, Sameem, I'm explaining everything. आप इतना लिखो बच्चे, I'm explaining. Vaibhav, give me some example. Is this clear? एक line लिखो, then I'll explain son of soil. Did you write? सबने लिख लिया है son of soil तक? Everybody has written till here. I have to dictate 2 lines. Then I will come down to the explanation of son of soil part. Write down. In positive sense, regionalism encourages people to develop a sense of brotherhood, and oneness. It encourages people to develop a sense of brotherhood and oneness, which seeks to protect In positive sense, regionalism encourages people to develop a sense of brotherhood and oneness which seeks to protect the interest of the people of that region, and promote its welfare and development. So that's a good thing, right? It binds people together. The people belonging to one particular region, it binds them together. It encourages them to develop a sense of brotherhood, unity, oneness among themselves, so that they can protect, perpetuate, promote the interest, welfare, development of that particular region. So that's a good thing, right? However, in the negative sense, it denotes excessive attachment to one's own region, to the extent of being detrimental to the interest of people belonging to other region, to the extent of being detrimental to the interest of people to the extent of being detrimental to the interest of people belonging to other region. Clear है? ठीक है? Okay. Vaibhav, it is how you are looking at the situation. ठीक है? See, the point which you are raising here is, it's more of an example of son of soil, right? ठीक, थोड़ा समझो, parochial regionalism हो गया, जैसे son of soil हो गया. I'm just answering, I'll just take 2 minutes, I just have to answer Vaibhav का एक doubt. बच्चे पता है क्या होता है, देखने के नजरिए पे डिपेंड करता है. That is why I asked you to give me one example that in what context you are talking about. See, the people of Maharashtra are very strongly attached to their culture. They are very strongly attached to the land. Their feeling of nativism is very high. ठीक है? They feel that these outsiders who have migrated to their area is causing distress to their culture. Why? Because the demography of your region is undergoing a change. If there are more people of different culture in migrating in your region from different parts of India, right? Let us say your population was 100. हम एक fictional situation लेते हैं. I belong to a region A. I am very closely attached to the land. ठीक है? And let us say our population was 100. ठीक है? Now opportunities were there for other people also. Let us say the opportunities were also 100. So it was a good balance which was existing with respect to culture also, with respect to opportunities also. Now, since these opportunities were 100 and these opportunities were missing in other areas, so in order to seek opportunity for job, education, employment, whichever field, people started in migrating. As a result, the population which was initially 100 and it was a homogeneous population consisting of the people of region A, now the population increased to, let us say, 200. ठीक है. However, the original जो inhabitants थे उस region के, वैभव, जो महाराष्ट्रियंस ले लेते हैं हम, तो वो तो 100 ही रहे. लेकिन अब टोटल पॉपुलेशन 200 है, जिसमें बाकी 100 जो हैं दे आर बिलोंगिंग टू डिफरेंट कल्चर्स नाउ, right? So the total population of that area is 200 now, of which only 50% are the original inhabitants. Their culture is getting dominated. The culture which they were proud of is now getting sidelined. It is now getting dominated. The people from other areas have migrated to their region. Is that very clear? So their culture is getting threatened. तो feeling of superiority होगी या relative deprivation होगा? खुद सोचो. The superiority was there. They were having pride in their culture. They wanted to preserve their culture. But because of that, since people started in migrating in their area, now their culture is getting threatened. So they are feeling relatively deprived. They are feeling that in their own land, their culture is getting marginalized. It is getting dominated by the presence of outsiders. And that is why they are retaliating. Did you get my point? Is it clear? Is it making sense? It's a very important concept. Feeling of regional deprivation, relative deprivation has to be there. It's a conceptual understanding. Is this clear? देखने का तरीका है. Absolutely, Anisha. In context of Arunachal, absolutely correct. And that is what they are demanding, that non-Arunachali needs to go. Is that clear? बिल्कुल बिल्कुल अब yes yes absolutely. क्या Vaibhav, I didn't understand what did you write. But yeah, Abu, what you wrote, absolutely we can relate. Richa, I'll answer your question. Give me 5 minutes. Anisha, yes, you can link the question. ठीक है. Relative deprivation वाला point, आदित्य, बच्चे, it is saying that you are feeling deprived. Okay, I'll give you one example. You will understand everything. Did I discuss about Assam issue in your class? Did I discuss what happened when official language of Assam was passed? Have I told anything with regard to that? I'll give you that example in case I haven't given. That will answer your question. Even if I have discussed that, I'm repeating that example so as to give you an idea that what exactly you guys are asking right now. एक example लो और समझो. Assam, it was a time when Assam was the greater Assam. ठीक है? Those parts were not separated. Let me just see what you have written on there. नहीं, ठीक है ना? चलो, अब मैं आराम से समझाती हूँ एग्जाम्पल को. वो डेजा वो फीलिंग आती है मुझे कि मैं पढ़ा चुकी हूँ, तो मैं कॉन्शियस हो जाती हूँ कि मैं रिपीट कर रही हूँ. I'll discuss this. तो क्या हुआ कि Greater Assam was the period. I'm talking about 1950s and 60s. So it was a period when Greater Assam existed. So your Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland was still the part of Assam. Now, Assam was a resource-rich area. Nothing to write, just listen. Assam was a resource-rich area. So that time, for better job opportunities, for better educational opportunities, the people of Bengal used to migrate to Assam. Okay? And they were migrating, and since a long period of time. Now, these Bengalis started residing in Assam, and slowly and gradually it was observed that Bengali youth, either due to their interest or better performance, whatsoever was the reason, they were started getting more represented in higher educational institutions. And slowly and gradually their concentration, their representation in private as well as the government jobs was significantly increasing. Right? So the people of Assam, the Assamese youth started feeling relatively deprived. I hope, Aditya, now you are getting the point. ठीक है ना? So now they were getting relatively deprived. और क्यों मैं ये पॉइंट बोल रही हूँ? कहाँ लिखा है हमने यार? ये regionalism is rooted in diversity. Obviously, Bengalis are different from Assamese. ये तो आप समझते हैं ना? It is rooted in ethnicity, it is rooted in your language, it is rooted in diversity in the culture. And when this factor is getting geographically concentrated, as in I'm giving you an example in context of Assam, and there is a feeling of deprivation. The Assamese youth is feeling deprived on their own land, because they have feared that Bengalis from outside have in-migrated to their area. These Bengali youth have got access to higher educational institutions. They are getting better represented in the government jobs. They are getting better represented in the private jobs. And these opportunities, whether education, whether employment, which should have been meant for the Assamese because they are the original inhabitant of that region, has been cornered away, has been usurped by the Bengali youth. So they started feeling relatively deprived. Relative deprivation with respect to whom? With respect to these Bengali youth who have acquired the opportunities of educational institutions as well as the employment opportunity. So then they demanded कि नहीं ऐसे नहीं चलेगा. So Assam Jan Sangram Parishad, all Assam Students Union, these bodies, I told you, there has to be a third party intervention to make you subjectively realize about the objective reality. So these Assami youth, they got channelized, they got mobilized, and they started protesting कि नहीं ऐसे नहीं चलेगा. You have to pass official Assam Language Act. That is, you have to declare Assamese as the official language there, and that should become the medium of examination. That should become the compulsory language with respect to seeking government jobs, or that should become the medium of instructions in the higher educational universities. Is that very clear? And that happened under the pressure. It was created 1961. Official Assamese Language Act was passed. Is that very clear? And why this act was passed, why Assamese was declared as the official language? Because Assamese youth wanted to curtail the domination of Bengali youth in their educational institution and in their government and private jobs. Is that very clear? इसके बाद एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग स्टोरी हुई. आई टोल्ड यू ग्रेटर आसाम था. So Mizo, Naga, Meghalaya, these people were also there. These were the tribal belts. They have their own language, they have their own culture. So, but when they found that Assamese has been declared as the official language of the state, so now their culture was getting threatened. If you feel your unique cultural identity is getting threatened, dominated, discriminated, and hence to concretize your own cultural identity, you are resorting to regionalism, it is absolutely justified. So then these tribal communities of Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, they started feeling threatened that because of the implementation of Assamese Official Language Act, it is their linguistic culture which is getting sidelined. It is getting marginalized. So they also started demanding autonomy. They also started demanding separate statehood, which resulted into reorganization of northeastern states in 1970s. Is that very clear for everyone? Is it making sense? कि जब तक relative deprivation नहीं होता है, you don't demand a separate autonomous state or secession, or you don't resort to violence. There has to be feeling that you are relatively deprived. अब एक और एग्जांपल वैभव आपको देती हूं आपके क्वेश्चन. आप अपर कास्ट को बिलोंग करते हो, लेट अस से, सो यू हैव दैट सुपीरियोरिटी एटीट्यूड, ठीक है, यू वांट टू मेंटेन दैट सुपीरियोरिटी, राइट, बट व्हेन यू फाउंड दैट द लोअर कास्ट पीपल बिकॉज ऑफ अफर्मेटिव एक्शन पॉलिसी आर इंप्रूविंग देयर स्टेटस in the society, in the socio-economic political domain, now you are feeling relatively deprived. कि यार इनको तो affirmative action मिल गया, because of which their status is improving, and because of that feeling of relative deprivation is being generated. So whenever you are resorting to violence, whenever you are resorting, there is a feeling of superiority. That is a different thing. That can be the foundational aspect. But what results into your resentment is that because you were feeling that superiority, you wanted to preserve that superiority. But now your superiority is getting threatened. Why? Because the opportunities are being provided to others. So you are feeling relatively deprived. Is this very clear for everyone? Is it making sense? कह सकते हैं अबू, कह सकते हैं. They are feeling deceived. कह सकते हैं, absolutely. They are feeling deceived. पर इस पे चर्चा नहीं करेंगे, डिबेट हो जाती है, लोग बुरा मान जाते हैं, क्योंकि मेरी थोड़ा सा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू अलग है. सो हाँ, मतलब नहीं, I will not say here, but हाँ, I will agree to your point. Yes, they are feeling deceived. What was being promised has not been served. ठीक है, तो हो सकता है लार्जर इंटरेस्ट में थोड़ा सा पॉइंट वेरी कर जाए तो लोग बुरा मान जाते हैं. Vaibhav, is it clear now? Aditya, whatever you asked was clear. Is everybody's doubt clear? Can I proceed now? कहां थे यार हम? मैंने आपको क्या पढ़ा दिया? रीजनलिज्म हो गया, पॉलिटिक्स हो गया, सब लिखवा दिया. लिखो, लैंडमार्क्स विच लेड टू द इमर्जेंस ऑफ रीजनलिज्म. Landmarks which led to the emergence of regionalism. सॉरी मुझे सन ऑफ सॉइल पहले पढ़ाना था। देखो, आंसर करने के चक्कर में ना मैं भूल ही जाती हूँ क्या पढ़ रहे थे हम। सन ऑफ सॉइल, सॉरी, somebody asked. Anybody wants to contribute? What is son of soil theory? What is son of soil theory? Any idea? हम बार बार बोलते ना, हाँ समीम, आई एम सो सॉरी बच्चे, आई एम जस्ट डिस्कसिंग दिस। सन ऑफ सॉइल, anything that you want to contribute. What is son of soil? What the term suggests? See, son of soil basically says that the people who are the original inhabitants नहीं बोलना ना, ऐसे नहीं. The point here is the people who are the original inhabitants of the land have the prime right over the resources of the land. So largely it is being used by certain political elements to serve their vested political interest, where it is being said that the people who speak the major language of that area are the original inhabitants and would be given preference with respect to the accessibility to the resources, to the extent of the exclusion of the outsiders from accessing those resources. I'll repeat, I'll make you write everything. If I am the person who speaks this language of this particular state or region, the major language is being spoken by me, I would be considered as the inhabitant of that region and I would be given the preference. I have the first right over the resources of the land because I am the son of the soil. And this right of me on the resources of the land would be guaranteed to me to an extent so that even the outsiders are excluded from accessing the rights over the resources. That is what son of soil, where the natives are pitted against the migrants. Is this very clear? Okay. Here the feeling of nativism, the love for the land is very high. Likho. Likho. Son of soil doctrine is an example of politics of nativism. Son of soil doctrine is an example of politics of nativism. Is an example of politics of nativism. When the inhabitants of the region, when the inhabitants of the region claim the rights over the resources of the land, claim the rights over the resources of the land, along with the exclusion of the outsiders, along with the exclusion of the outsiders, along with the exclusion of the outsiders, is referred as son of soil. Yes, Shantanu, this is the example. Absolutely, Amit. The major linguistic group inhabiting the particular area will have the first right over the resources of the land to the extent of exclusion of outsiders from accessing those resources. Is this very clear for everyone? Yes, Shantanu, reserving seat or the jobs in context of Haryana for the people, the local natives, is an example of son of soil. Is this very clear for everyone? Now, write down the factors which influence son of soil policy. The factors which influence son of soil policy, as in the areas where you will find this culture of son of soil policy. there are certain specific factors which influences the son of soil policy. The first is you would find son of soil policies largely in those areas which do not have the culture of out migration. Pehla. Second, often son of soil policy happens when there is struggle with respect to middle class jobs. Third, it can also be due to presence of strong regional parties. So these strong regional parties basically do not have major agendas. So in order to remain politically relevant, they often resort to politics of nativism. One of its manifestation is son of soil policy. Then failure of state to accommodate the interest of both natives and migrants. And lastly, rising aspirations. Everybody has very high aspirations these days, and there is a lot of expectation, right? And the feeling of relative deprivation has also aggravated or accentuated because of the presence of social media. So everything is now visible, राइट पहले क्या होता था, एक कहावत थी पहले जमाने में कि इंसान के पास कितना पैसा है ये तब पता चलता है जब घर में कोई शादी होती है, इंसान घर बनवाता है, राइट? अदरवाइज फॉर अ वेरी लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम यू डोंट इवन नो हाउ मच इज द वर्थ और द वेल्थ ऑफ द अदर person, right? जब there is a marriage in the house, then you actually get to know the real worth of that person. However, nowadays, even if you have the worth or not, in order to remain relevant in the social aspect, not to suffer from the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out, in order to get accepted by certain groups, everything is being posted on your social media accounts. So everybody is seeing, watching that. So the feeling of relative deprivation these days is very high. Is that very clear? So there is a lot of rising aspirations, and when those aspirations don't get satisfied, then the feeling of disenchantment, resentment is also very high. Is that clear? जब उम्मीदें बहुत ज्यादा होती हैं और जब अचीव नहीं कर पाते हैं, then the challenge is there. Is that clear? Is it making sense? Is it making sense for everyone? ठीक है? Let me give you one example to explain son of soil. Is everybody aware of the fact that on a very constant or a very continuous basis there has been a struggle which is emerging? अच्छा, जो मैं examples देती हूँ ना वो rough में कहीं mention कर लो, not the detailed story but just mention the examples. जैसे वो Greater Assam with respect to the Official Language Act which was passed in 1961, how it resulted into feeling of relative deprivation among the tribal communities there. तो कहीं mention कर लो so that in case the question comes you have the examples. There is another set of example with respect to Khasi area of Meghalaya. Now, it is with respect to Ramdasiya Sikh population. I'll just discuss what was it. It so happened that Britishers के time पे ही these Ramdasiya Sikh people, they were basically the Dalit converts from Hinduism to Sikhism. ठीक है? So these people were being migrated, were taken by the Britishers to work in Meghalaya, in the Khasi area. ठीक है? However, there also they were working in the menial jobs only. But they were recruited by the Britishers in the state job, in the government job. Okay? So although they were doing the menial work, but they were indulged in the government jobs which provided them income security and job security. Okay? So over a period of time, they were doing the menial job, but since they had the job income security, so slowly and gradually the status of their next generation started improving. And because they also had the benefit of the affirmative action, so the opportunities were generated for the kids of these people who have migrated to work in the Khasi areas. So slowly and gradually, the next generation which was emerging, they were getting access to education, they were getting access to employment opportunity, they were also able to improve the status. So the first generation, the second generation might have worked in the menial jobs, but slowly and gradually, their status started improving. And they started becoming visible in the middle class economy of the Khasi areas. Now the Khasi people started feeling threatened. Jab tak these people were doing the menial jobs, the Khasi people did not have any problem because they themselves were not interested in doing those menial jobs. So till that time they were very happy because there was a relationship of interdependence. They were dependent on these Ramdasiya Sikh people to basically perform the menial jobs of the region. But when the socio-economic status of the Ramdasiya Sikh population started increasing, when the next future generations of Ramdasiya Sikh people were getting represented in the middle class job, the middle class economy, the trading community started getting largely occupied by these Ramdasiya Sikh people, then these Khasi people started feeling threatened. And then they started demanding, nahi, nahi, ye Sikh population hai, our culture is getting dominated, please ask them to go back to Punjab, they are spoiling our ethnicity. So the thing is that Khasis do not have the culture of out-migration. Right, they prefer more comfort is there. ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई migrate नहीं करता. Largely the culture is not there because they feel more comfortable on their land. One. Second, till the time they were doing the menial jobs, they did not have the issue. But when the struggle started for the middle class jobs, then they started feeling threatened. And as a result, they resorted to Son of Soil, where they asked that these people should be sent back to Punjab. In fact, see the irony, they have worked on the Khasi areas for approximately 100 years. They were brought to those areas by the Britishers during their time. And now after 100 years, when they have labored for the prosperity of that area, you're asking them to go back just because you're ethnically different. It's more because you're feeling relatively deprived, which you are presenting in the garb of ethnic differences. Is that very clear? Is it making sense for everyone? Can we proceed now? इतना लिख लेंगे सब, ठीक है. Next, the landmarks which led to the emergence of regionalism. First, these are the basic 4 landmarks in the post-independence period which resulted into emergence of regionalism in India. The first was establishing a democratic form of government whose aim was nation building on the principles of unity, justice, equality, liberty, etc. Every region wanted a fair deal. And it was believed that anything short of expectation has resulted into disenchantment. So everyone wanted a fair deal. Every region wanted a fair deal in the process of development, and anything short of expectation was met with disenchantment. That's the first reason. When you have lot of expectations, if you don't have any expectation, so anything that you get, you will be more than happy. right? But when you have expectations and your expectations are not met, then it gives you a feeling of relative deprivation. Is this clear? The second is integration of princely states. Third is linguistic reorganization of states. And fourth is the vested interest of the politicians. Clear है? Can we proceed? लिख लो, चलो फिर बात करते हैं. Once you've written, let me know. Done? एक लाइन लिख लो जरा सेल्फिश इंटरेस्ट ऑफ पॉलिटिशियंस में. जस्ट राइट वन लाइन. The politicians exploited the narrow and regional sentiments of the ignorant masses. The politicians exploited the narrow and regional sentiments of the masses for fulfilling their vested interest. I'll repeat, the politicians exploited the narrow and regional sentiments of the ignorant masses to fulfill their vested interest. Sri Charan, see, regionalism on the basis of linguistic identity resulted into linguistic reorganization of states. However, this linguistic reorganization of state was not the end. It was just the beginning. If you remember, I have discussed it in the class. It was nothing but opening of a Pandora box. It further accentuated the demands on the basis of language. Is this clear? Linguistic reorganization of state was not the end. There were linguistic aspirations. People wanted to concretize their linguistic identity, and that is why they demanded that the state should be reorganized on linguistic lines. But since we are so linguistically diverse that even after reorganization, there were many linguistic groups whose aspirations were not getting satisfied or did not get satisfied during that time. So those demands are even emerging today. Is that very clear? Mithlapur, Gorkhaland. These are linguistic demands. So this was not an end. It was the opening of the Pandora box. It was the beginning of that. Is that clear? Last sentence once again. क्या था बच्चे? Selfish interest of politicians. Politicians exploited the narrow and regional sentiments of the ignorant masses to fulfill their vested interest. थैंक्स काजल. अब बढ़े आगे. बेसिस ऑफ रीजनलिज्म. Basis of regionalism. there are different bases of regionalism in context of India. Bases as in what are the factors which are responsible for emergence of regionalism in India, or what is the premise based on which the regionalism has emerged in context of India. It can be historical factor, it can be geographical factor, it can be socio-cultural factor, it can be political administrative factor. And finally, it can be economic factor. I didn't have the space. I'll write it on the next screen. Economic factor. First, I am dictating. I'm going slow क्योंकि इसमें कुछ समझाने को नहीं है. You can just start writing. Historical factor. It supported regionalism. It supported regionalism on the basis of folklore, cultural heritage and myth. Historical basis says it supports this theory of regionalism, demand of regionalism on the basis of cultural heritage or folklores or myths, etc. For example, the demand for Dravida Nadu or Dravidistan. Demand for Dravidistan. Example. Dravidistan. Write down. It was supported by the theory. It was supported by the theory that at one point of time, Dravidian speaking area, it was supported by the theory that at one point of time, the Dravidian speaking area or the area habitated by the Dravidian speaking population had non-Brahmanical polity and society. Non-Brahmanical polity and society. Non-Brahmanical polity and society. That is, it was non-stratified. कोई अपर कास्ट लोअर कास्ट ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. इट वॉज अ नॉन ब्राह्मणिकल पॉलिटी इन सोसाइटी. इट वॉज अनस्ट्रैटिफाइड. it was unstratified. However, it was disrupted with the Aryan conquest and their quest to establish their hegemony. It was disrupted by the Aryan conquest and their hegemony. ठीक है? Historical factors है. Do you realize whatsoever we have discussed so far, there is nothing called conceptual understanding. कोई बहुत rocket science concept नहीं है. If you have understood the definition of regionalism, if you have understood that it is rooted in India's diversity, if you have understood what is son of soil policy, if you have understood how positive and negative aspect of regionalism operates, it is more to do with examples. So whenever you are writing a statement, just quote one example to give the clarity to the examiner that exactly what you are talking about. Is that very clear? Similarly, if I talk about the geographical aspect, okay, so geographical factors which can impact regionalism, it can be the presence of natural resources. इस पे आपका तो कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है ना यार, तो geographical factor है. It can be with respect to international border. इस पे भी आपका कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. You are residing in that area where geography is such. It can also be with respect to connectivity with mainland India. It can be with respect to landforms. It can be with respect to climate. rainfall, etc. So these are nothing but the geographical factors which also impacts the demand of regionalism. For example, in context of Northeast area, one of the major factor responsible for their demand of regionalism, why often they are demanding separate state or they are demanding secession only, okay? Why? Because they are unhappy with the level of development which is there. They believe they are suffering from the problem of underdevelopment. They believe their ethnicity is often under threat because of the illegal migrations which are happening from the neighboring countries. And why all of this is happening? Underdevelopment, the problem can be the connectivity with the mainland India. That can be one of the factor. There is only one chicken neck corridor, the Siliguri corridor, which connects the entire Northeast with mainstream India. So because of that problem of connectivity, often it is perceived that the resources, the services are not being adequately provided to the Northeast area. So they are suffering from the problem of underdevelopment. That's one thing. The second thing, why their ethnicity is often coming under threat, their culture is coming under threat because of the illegal migration from the neighboring countries. And why is it happening? Because 99% of the border of the Northeastern state is the international border. So they are more vulnerable to the problem of illegal migration from the neighboring countries. So these are the geographical factors which can be responsible. Why some region is better developed as compared to the other region? It can be because of the geographical factor, the climate factor, the land form. Obviously, plain area, the probability of development is high then as compared to the hill area. The area which is having natural rainfall, the probability of economic development is more as compared to the other areas which do not have much rainfall. So this is geographical factor which is also responsible for uneven development of different regions. So that can also be the cause of regionalism. Is that clear for everyone? It is more to do with examples and less to do with the understanding. As in कोई concept बोलकर नहीं है. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल टूरिज्म उसको हम डेवलपमेंट में डालेंगे बच्चे. स्ट्रक्चर्स डेवलप करना, ठीक है, तो वहां पर आ जाता है कि इट कैन बी द स्टेट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन हैज फेल्ड टू जनरेट. भाई कोई तो हिस्टोरिकल फैक्टर्स हो सकते हैं. अब ताजमहल है ही आगरा में, तो इसका हम क्या कर सकते हैं? ठीक है ना. सो दैट कैन बी वन ऑफ द एस्पेक्ट. अब जैसे रिवर है, सेक्रेड एस्पेक्ट है, तो पिलग्रिमेजेस वहां पर बन गए हैं. बफर रीजन, रिचा, यस बफर रीजन, बुंदेलखंड. लेकिन टूरिज्म का पोटेंशियल डेवलप भी किया जा सकता है थ्रू बेटर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. बट यस, एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. इज दिस वेरी क्लियर? वी कैन पुट दैट पॉइंट, बोथ रिचा एंड वैभव, वी कैन ऐड दिस. ठीक है. सोशो कल्चरल बेसिस. सी, सोशो कल्चरल बेसिस में एक्चुअली होने 3 पार्ट्स चाहिए. वन इज लैंग्वेज, अदर इज कास्ट, and third is religion. There should be ideally 3 aspects to the socio-cultural basis of regionalism. Language, we have already studied, linguistic reorganization of states. You can add this. With respect to caste, the movement in context of Tamil Nadu. Actually, this entire movement for Dravida Nadu or Dravidistan which had emerged, it was actually initiated on the basis of caste. They were questioning the hegemony of Brahmins. It was an anti-Brahmin movement, to be very precise. Later, it was presented in the garb of language. However, the origination of this movement of Dravida Nadu or a separate Dravidistan was on the basis of the anti-caste, anti-Brahmin sentiments which were present that time. Similarly, based on religion, the demand for a separate Punjab state, or yeah, to be very precise, okay, I was giving Khalistan, but Khalistan I'll not write here. So with respect to religion, the demand or the regionalism which emerged in context of Punjab. However, listen carefully, both the caste and religion example was presented in the garb of language, because it was very clearly stated by the leadership, any demand which is communal in nature would not be accepted. Jawaharlal Nehru has clearly specified any demand which is communal in nature. So if your demand is based on caste or your demand is based on religion, it will not be accepted because it is going to act as a threat to the secular fabric of your country. So you have to present that demand. It has to be based on something else, right? It cannot be on the basis of caste or religion. So in order to get their demands satisfied, the demands which were originally based on caste and religion were presented in the garb of linguistic demand. So even in context of Tamil Nadu, even in context of Punjab, both the demands were presented in the garb of language because they knew that any demand which is communal in nature would not be accepted. Is that clear? Is this clear? ठीक है, चलो एक लाइन में लिखो. Socio-cultural. Language has been the most important mark of group identification. Language has been the most important mark of group identification, hence given rise to linguistic regionalism. Hence given rise to linguistic regionalism. Bifurcation of Greater Assam. Give the example. Hence has given rise to linguistic regionalism. Example, bifurcation of Greater Assam. Next. Demand of Tamil Nadu was on the basis of caste. Bracket में लिख लेना. It was anti-Brahmanical in its orientation. It was anti-Brahmanical in its orientation, as they wanted to end the dominance of Brahmins. As they wanted to end the dominance of Brahmins. Full stop. However, it provided a strong impetus. It provided a strong impetus to linguistic regionalism. To linguistic regionalism, it provided a strong impetus to linguistic regionalism as caste-based demand will not be accepted, as caste-based demand will not be accepted because it threatens the secular fabric of India. Because it threatens the secular fabric of India. Secular fabric of India. Similarly, the religious demand in context of Punjab, the religious demand in context of Punjab was presented in the linguistic garb. Was presented in the linguistic garb. Next, politico-administrative basis. Politico-administrative basis. Write down. Politics does not create regionalism. Politics does not create regionalism. It accentuates regionalism. Politics does not create regionalism. It accentuates regionalism. It accentuates regionalism. It takes advantage. Politics does not create regionalism, it accentuates regionalism. Create नहीं करता, सिर्फ बढ़ावा देता है. It takes advantage of regional discontent. It takes advantage of regional, matlab already there is some regional discontent which is existing, it just takes advantage of that. It takes advantage of the regional discontent and convert it in their favor to strengthen their vote bank. Convert it in their favor to strengthen their vote bank. For example, insider-outsider complex. We are the original habitants. This area belongs to us. You are the outsider. तो वही एक लड़ाई चल रही है, insider outsider complex, which gives rise to politics of nativism or son of soil. So politicians do not create, politics doesn't create regionalism. Regional discontent is already there. It further accentuates it by fanning the sentiments of regional discontent among the natives of the region against the migrant population. Is that very clear? Last, final, economic basis. It is the crux of regional politics. Economic basis, it is the crux of regional politics. It is the crux of regional politics. It is based on the fact that resources are limited and demand are disproportionate. It is the crux of regional politics. It is based on the fact that resources are limited, however, demands are disproportionate. Next, इसी में the government's economic policies over the years have failed to address the problem of regional disparities. In fact, it has further aggravated the regional imbalance and economic differences. It has further aggravated the regional imbalances and economic differences. Last point. It is due to this unequal distribution. It is due to this unequal distribution of the developmental benefits. It is due to this unequal distribution of the developmental benefits that there has been the demand of regionalism. There has been various demands of regionalism. Is this clear for everyone? ठीक है. Can you answer this question? Economic differences. Can you answer this question? What are the bases of regionalism? Is it the unequal distribution of economic benefits? Or it should not be like this. Is economic inequality the most important factor? Let me put it like this. Is the economic inequality the most important basis of regionalism? Is everybody sure that they can answer this question? It's a 10 marker. If I ask you to write a 10 marker answer, that what are the bases of regionalism and is it the economic inequality the most important basis of regionalism? Everybody sure? It was UPSC question 2016. Write down the question. What are the bases of regionalism? Is it the economic inequality the most important basis of regionalism or most important factor behind regionalism? That was the exact question. The most important factor behind regionalism. This was the exact question. Wait. Just give me 1 minute. Just give me 1 minute. कहाँ चला गया यार? Write down one more question. ये पता नहीं कब खुलेगा. एक और क्वेश्चन लिखो. डू यू अग्री that regionalism in India, do you agree that regionalism in India appears do you agree that regionalism do you agree that regionalism in India appears to be a consequence of rising cultural assertiveness? Consequence of rising cultural assertiveness. Question mark and write argue. Argue. It was the question which was asked in 2020. अभी चल नहीं रहा है, but the answer is prepared and it is uploaded on your on the Telegram channel. So you can refer from there. But anyhow, just read the question and tell me, will you be able to answer? Do you agree that regionalism in India appears to be a consequence of rising cultural assertiveness? Of rising cultural assertiveness, argue. Can you answer this question? That is the question asked in 2020. But ma'am, in current context, economic inequality has become the major factor. हाँ, तो ये सच है. Exactly, it is the fact. In this particular question, you have to argue. Can you answer this question? I want to give this question to an extent, but not fully. Acha, you're answering this question. Okay. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes. Give me the structure of this answer. The second question. Do you agree that regionalism in India, give me the structure of this answer. This is 2020. Argue करो. अब चल नहीं रहा है ना यार, नहीं तो मैं आंसर ही दिखा देती. Okay, I'll discuss. Take 5 minutes. कुछ तो structure बनाओ. I'll discuss. Should I argue in favor or against? Whichever way you can support, you can justify. Whichever way. पांच मिनट लो और थोड़ा सा स्ट्रक्चर बनाओ. आई मेक दिस क्वेश्चन द असाइनमेंट क्वेश्चन. नेहा, this 2020 का UPSC question, the second question which I gave would be the assignment question. I'm giving you 5 minutes. Just think. Deepak, yes, good. Very good. You start with the definition of regionalism. Talk about how, in order to concretize the cultural identities, there have been various incidences of regionalism in context of India. Then you divide the body in two parts. One, regionalism as a result of rising cultural assertiveness. And within that, you can talk about the historical factors, the socio-cultural factors. Within that, one can talk about language, religion, caste, and then you will be talking about other factors. Here you can also add son of soil. Although son of soil is more of a political factor, but in son of soil, you have strong cultural affiliation with your land. There is a strong sense of asserting your culture. You want to protect, preserve your culture against any kind of corruption by the people who are in migrating in your region. So you can also talk about those examples. And the other factors then you will be talking about how asserting or rising cultural assertiveness is just one of the dimension of regionalism. There are other factors also responsible for it. Then you can talk about the economic factor, you can talk about the political factor, you can talk about the administrative apathy which is existing. And then overall conclusion can be given. Is this very clear for everyone? Will you attempt writing this question? Absolutely. See, you've made the good structure. Sri Charan, absolutely correct. Vaibhav. वैभव थोड़ा सा डिविएट हो गया है. सागरिका एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. प्रिया ठीक है. प्रिया सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट भी लिखना है. ठीक है. अबू ठीक है. ठीक. नहीं बच्चे अबू ये नहीं लिखेंगे. हाउ टू मिनिमाइज इट, यही मेरा पॉइंट है. हम सिर्फ इतना इंश्योर करेंगे दैट रीजनलिज्म इज नॉट हैविंग नेगेटिव कोनोटेशन. ठीक है. सो in the end you can write that not all type of regionalism is a threat to national integration. So one should make effort to ensure that it is not taking the form of negative connotation, right? It is not being based on violence, it is not being based on parochial identities, or one is not demanding cessation. बस जब तक वो सब नहीं कर रहे हो तब तक it is absolutely fine. ठीक है ना. Absolutely correct, Aditya. हाँ ठीक है, ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो. परफेक्ट है. ये किसने लिखा है यार? नेहा. परफेक्ट. बिल्कुल ठीक है. बिल्कुल कंक्लूजन इनफैक्ट ये बेटर रहेगा नेहा. दिस इज गुड. She's saying that we can talk about the way ahead to integrate the society at larger extent. So the focus has to be on integration. Focus has to be on ensuring that regionalism is not acting as a threat to national integration rather than how to minimize. क्योंकि regionalism कोई गलत concept थोड़ी ना है. It is absolutely fine. हाँ अनुष्का बिल्कुल लिख सकते हैं. बिल्कुल लिख सकते हैं. माइग्रेशन तभी हमने ऐड किया है बच्चे. सन ऑफ सॉइल. दैट इज वाई वी हैव एडेड. कि फीलिंग ऑफ डेप्रिवेशन आता है इसलिए बिकॉज द पीपल ऑफ डिफरेंट कल्चर्स आर इन माइग्रेटिंग इन योर एरिया एंड दैट इज थ्रेटनिंग the unique culture. So whether it is northeast, whether it is the areas where son of soil policy is at large, absolutely you can write all this. Is that very clear for everyone? If you want to look for a detailed answer, it is there on the Telegram channel. उस पे जाके देखना, अभी पता नहीं खुल क्यों नहीं रहा, नहीं तो मैं डिटेल आंसर यहीं दिखा देती. बट दिस इज हाउ इट हैज टू बी स्ट्रक्चर्ड. ठीक है, जल्दी से नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, द टाइप्स ऑफ रीजनलिज्म. Different types of regionalism. It is self-explanatory. Just by examples you can write. नहीं 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 वैभव, बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. You, I'll tell you why did I say that you have slightly deviated, because you wrote only one point, that the culture is getting threatened because of the global culture. That is just one aspect. Okay, that is why I said that you've just written that one aspect. So that is giving an impression that you have addressed the question. I think you've written सिर्फ एक यही point लिखा था, इसीलिए पूछ रहे हो ना कि cultural threat की बात क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं. You're basically trying to say because of the global culture, the traditional culture is getting threatened. So the vocal for local की जो बात है, अपनी indigenous culture को reiterate कराना, because of imposition of English, your traditional languages are getting threatened, they are getting endangered. I am assuming this is what you're trying to say, right? Because of the global culture, but that's just one point. Let me see what. इसीलिए मैंने कहा था कि that you've just taken the topic from one perspective. लिखा था, अच्छा ठीक है, नहीं लिख सकते हो, कोई बुराई नहीं है. ऑब्वियसली इनफैक्ट देखा जाए तो विद इन इंडिया अगर हम बात करते हैं तो कल्चरल थ्रेट ही तो है. चाहे आसाम में किसी का एक थ्रेट हो रहा हो, या फॉर दैट मैटर पंजाब में यू आर फीलिंग थ्रेटन बिकॉज यू फील दैट योर रिलीजन इज गेटिंग usurped, ठीक है, it is being getting dominated by the Hindu community, तो बिल्कुल बिल्कुल within the region आपका culture ही तो threat पे आ रहा है, that is why you're trying to assert your culture. तो ऐसा नहीं है, it's just that you've written global aspect, so I thought that you've written just one point, that is why I said that you've deviated from the topic. That can be one of the dimension. The important dimensions are asserting your cultural identity within those parameters. ठीक है, how it is getting threatened within the domain. ठीक है, that was the main content. One of the factor you can write absolutely. अरे बफर रीजन कौन उसको डील करेगा, बुंदेलखंड है, ठीक है, इट इज अ बफर रीजन बिटवीन यूपी एंड एमपी. No one wants to give up on that region, but nobody wants to work for the development of that region also. That is the thing. Belgaum, it's between Maharashtra and Karnataka. So the buffer region के साथ issue ये हो जाता है that you don't want to give up your control, your authority over that region. But then it is believed, why should I work for the development of the region? That area is also falling in the vicinity of the other state. So that bordering state is going to work for the development. So the thing which is the responsibility of more than one, then it is no one's responsibility. कहते हैं ना, if someone is the responsibility of everyone, then it is no one's responsibility. Because who would be held accountable? बुंदेलखंड का डेवलपमेंट नहीं हो रहा, किसको पकड़े? यूपी की सरकार को पकड़े या एमपी की सरकार को पकड़े? और जब कह रहे हैं कि उस पर कंट्रोल छोड़ दो, तो वो आपको छोड़ना नहीं है. रीजनलिज्म. Is that very clear? So interstate. Is it making sense? ठीक है, last point. The positive and negative impact. The positive and negative impact of regionalism. Positive and negative impact of regionalism. Last topic, I think. Write down. Regionalism not always acts as a threat to national integration. Regionalism not always acts as a threat to national integration. Positive impacts. It contributes to the process of nation building. It contributes to the process of nation building by accommodating the federal sentiments. By accommodating the federal sentiments. It contributes to the process of nation building by accommodating federal sentiments. Next point. It helps in fulfilling regional aspirations and demands. It helps in fulfilling regional aspiration and demands. Next, by accepting the regional demands, it guarantees the right of self-determination. By accepting the regional demands, it guarantees the right of self-determination to the people. They feel as if they are the part of governance if they have certain demands that is being fulfilled. So in true sense, it is democracy which is being practiced by the people, for the people, of the people. So by accepting the regional demands, it guarantees the right of self-determination to the people. Next, not always regional interest is against the national interest. Not always regional interest is against the national interest. For example, through 5th and 6th schedule, it ensured the protection as well as preservation. It ensured protection as well as preservation of the unique culture of the indigenous people. It ensured the protection and preservation of the unique culture of the indigenous people, which helped the nation to realize the essence of salad bowl theory, helped the nation to realize the essence of salad bowl theory of multiculturalism, both in letter and spirit. Both in letter and spirit. Next. In fact, it helps in keeping political extremism at bay. किनारे पे रखता है. It helps in keeping political extremism at bay. However, paragraph change and write, however, at times regionalism becomes the proxy, at times regionalism becomes the proxy for secession, extremism, etc. Becomes the proxy for secession, extremism, etc. For example, in context of Punjab during the demand of Khalistan. For example, in context of Punjab during the demand of Khalistan. So sometimes regionalism becomes the proxy for secession, extremism. For example, in context of Punjab during the demand for Khalistan. Is this clear? Write down the negative impact. It becomes a threat to national unity. It becomes a threat to national unity when people indulges in parochial regionalism. When people indulge in parochial regionalism. When people indulge in parochial regionalism. For example, attack on migrant labor from Bihar by ULFA. Attack on migrant labor from Bihar by ULFA. So it threatens the national unity when people indulge in parochial regionalism. Next. It often becomes the basis of vote bank politics. It often becomes the basis of vote bank politics. Often become the basis for vote bank politics. It often becomes the basis of vote bank politics. It also threatens the international diplomacy. It also threatens the international diplomacy. For example, the very apt example that India's participation or interference in Sri Lankan civil war during Rajiv Gandhi's time. because when there was a civil war happening between Sri Lankan government as well as Lite, so there was a lot of pressure which was created from Tamil Nadu on the central government to interfere and to help the Tamilians in Sri Lanka. So sometimes this regionalism, to appease the regional sentiments, to accommodate the regional sentiments, many a times also negatively impacts the international diplomacy. The relation of India with Sri Lanka nosedived because of that interference. Is that clear? Okay. Next, it can also result into unequal distribution of resources. It can also result into unequal distribution of resources because of the presence. हाँ श्रीचरण लिख सकते हैं। अरे आज तो मैं बहुत धीमे बोल रही हूं। अरे राम, फिर फास्ट हो गया क्या? ओहो, कुछ ऐसा स्पेसिफिक है जो रिपीट करना है तो लास्ट में मुझे बता देना। लास्ट आते आते एक्चुअली ना मैं घड़ी देख रही थी कि 5 बजे से तुम लोग का दूसरा क्लास है, 4:30 मुझे खत्म करना है, इसलिए जो रह गया हो वो मुझे लास्ट में बता देना, मैं रिपीट कर दूंगी। ठीक है। आज तो मैं सच में, पता है, आज एक्चुअली आई हैव मेड अ डेलिबरेट एफर्ट टू बी स्लो। अगर आज भी मैं स्लो नहीं हूं ना तो फिर तो मेरे बस की नहीं है। तो मतलब चलो कहां थे? लास्ट पॉइंट लिखो, अनइक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज, अनइक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ रिसोर्सेज ड्यू टू प्रेजेंस ऑफ, ड्यू टू प्रेजेंस ऑफ strong regional leaders, due to presence of strong regional leaders, accentuates or aggravates, कुछ भी लिख दो, feeling of relative deprivation, unequal distribution of resources due to presence of strong regional leaders, जो जितना negotiate कर ले central government के साथ. So strong regional leaders also results or aggravates the feeling of relative deprivation. Is that clear? Is there any specific point? Now I have repeated the last point. ठीक है, क्लियर है? किसी ने कोई क्वेश्चन पूछा था, लेट मी जस्ट सी इफ देयर इज एनी स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन। First point of positive impact, it contributes to the process of nation building by accommodating the federal sentiments. Greater Nagalim, सिक्योरिटी हुआ नहीं है ना, होगा, सब पढ़ोगे, पूरा नॉर्थ ईस्ट क्राइसिस पढ़ोगे जब सिक्योरिटी पढ़ोगे। What was the demand for ILP? Why Meghalaya is now demanding ILP? Why they have not been guaranteed? Greater Nagalim क्या issue है? Everything you will study in security, detail aspect of Northeast. ठीक है, don't worry for that. Is this clear for everyone? Is positive, negative aspect of regionalism clear? Write down a question. What do you mean by regionalism? What do you mean by regionalism? Question mark. हाँ तो फिर तो पता ही होगा फिर तो। What do you mean by regionalism? Question mark. To what extent it acts as a threat to national integration? To what extent it acts as a threat to national integration? Discuss to what extent it acts as a threat to national integration. Discuss. 10 marker question. ठीक है? See, to be very honest, if you read these topics, largely there are certain standard questions which are going to be asked. What is regionalism? What are the factors responsible for regionalism? What is the implication of regionalism? So whether positive or negative in that capacity. What were the factors or what were the incidences which gave rise to regionalism? Was regionalism present in pre-independence period? Yes, you might have studied. Even during the British period also, the seed of regional consciousness or regionalism were sown during the British period itself. Why? Because there was uneven development which took place, which still we are facing the problem. That was more the result of the policies and the activities of the Britishers. They basically focused on the coastal cities, on the coastal areas. Why? Because there was their own vested interest. Even the infrastructure, even the railways were developed in such a way that it connects the areas where the raw material is being developed to the areas, the coastal cities from where the raw material can be exported. So for serving their own vested economic interest, they have developed the infrastructure in such a manner that it was responsible for the uneven economic development, which still we are bearing the repercussions. So that was the sentiments of regional consciousness were sown or were reaped during the period of Britishers. Is that very clear? Similarly, there was differential treatment which was being given to the princely states as compared to the various presidencies or the provinces. So that was also the reason which had facilitated regionalism in the post-independent period. वो आप modern history में पढ़ते हो. Similarly, Northeast India, why they never treat themselves to be the part of the mainstream India? Because during the British period, they were governed by the Bengal Frontier Act of 1873. So that consciousness, that national consciousness has not emerged in context of northeastern people, and that is why they don't find themselves attached to the mainland India, and that is why there has been problem which the leadership has faced in the post independence period. तो ये सब आपने modern history में करा है. कहने का मेरा तात्पर्य है that you would not get content at one place. You've studied modern history, you know that what were the policies of the Britishers, how their economic policies had resulted into uneven development. ठीक है? You know how there was differential treatment which was given in context of British, as in the provinces and the princely states, which has also led to the development of regional consciousness. Okay? Then, for example, the movement for Telangana had emerged in the British period itself only. Is that very clear? Similarly, Northeast, what is the crisis? One of the roots of Northeastern crisis is because of the policy of the governance which was adopted towards them by the Britishers. However, in the post-independence period, it was the democratic form of government. It was the integration of princely states. It was linguistic reorganization. It was the vested interest of politicians, which has furthered the regional consciousness in context of India. तो यहां थोड़ा हमने मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री से ले लिया. वहीं जब हम नॉर्थ ईस्ट की बात करेंगे तो थोड़ा सा हम सिक्योरिटी से ले लेंगे. फिर जब हम जोग्राफिकल फैक्टर्स की बात करेंगे तो जोग्राफी, टोपोग्राफी एंड यू नो द नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज, रेनफॉल, क्लाइमेट, तो अगर वो पॉइंट डालना है तो थोड़ा सा वहां से बोरो होता है. फिर जब आप इकोनॉमिक्स पढ़ते हो तो आपको पता है व्हाट आर द फैक्टर्स, द पॉलिसीज दैट वर बीइंग अडॉप्टेड बाय द इंडियन गवर्नेंस ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. यू स्टडी हाउ इकोनॉमी हैज इवॉल्व्ड right from the time of independence till today, right? You do study planning and everything. You know where we faltered, right? So something has to be borrowed from there. However, here you get the amalgamation collection of everything that you have studied so far. Is that very clear? तो ये थोड़ा सा माइनिंग करना होता है, एग्जाम्पल्स ढूंढ के लिखने होते हैं आंसर में, ऑटोमेटिकली यू विल फेच मार्क्स. Is that very clear for everyone? Is it making sense? ठीक है? Nativism is one of the manifestation or factor responsible for regionalism, Richa. Nativism is love for the land. That can be one of the reason for regionalism. Let me put it this way. Is that clear? Okay. I'll just answer that later. Exactly, Anshu. That is what my point is. And that is why sometimes it will happen that you're studying a particular section and you might not be getting the exact understanding. But when the remaining parts of the puzzle, the remaining aspect of the foundation course is solved, everything will fall into place. For example, आज philosophical essay करने जाओगे लेकिन ethics पढ़ा ही नहीं है, तो कैसे लिख पाओगे? लिख ही नहीं सकते भाई, जब एथिक्स पढ़ी ही नहीं है तो फिलोसॉफिकल एसेज में लिख कर क्या होगे? फॉर्डर ही नहीं होगा तुम्हारे पास। सिमिलरली नॉर्थ ईस्ट क्राइसिस जब पढ़ी ही नहीं है तो रिलेट कैसे कर पाओगे भाई? एक कहानी पढ़ा दी खासी की, एक कहानी पढ़ा दी असम की, चकमा और हजोंग के बारे में एक मेंशन दे दिया कि भाई कहां से दिक्कत आ रही है, या असम में इलीगल माइग्रेशन हुआ था बांग्लादेश से, लेकिन हर कहानी पढ़नी है कि मणिपुर में क्या इशू था, त्रिपुरा में क्या इशू था, क्यों ग्रेटर नागालैंड की डिमांड आई, तो उसके लिए नॉर्थ ईस्ट क्राइसिस तो पढ़ना पड़ेगा ना, तभी तो वो पजल के पीसेस फिट होंगे। ये है तो थोड़ा पेशेंस। वंस योर फाउंडेशन कोर्स इज डन, वंस यू रेड द एंटायर फाउंडेशन वंस, थिंग्स विल स्टार्ट फॉलिंग इनटू प्लेस। इज दैट वेरी क्लियर? ठीक है, चलो ऑफिशियली द लेक्चर एंड्स। आई जस्ट आंसर वन क्वेश्चन which I think Shantanu has asked. Shantanu, ma'am, please give some tips for increasing speed because I'm writing assignments and according to the time limit, we have to write in 7 minutes only and 2-3 minutes. Shantanu, it will come with practice. It will come with practice. And yeah, so you need to work more, as in you have to curtail your time for writing. Because सोचने में एक आध मिनट तो लगेगा ही ना, and you have to write the right contextual answer. So I think try to work on the presentation, as in some answers can be written in bullets. You don't have to unnecessarily expand. Then given the nature of the question, not every answer there has to be conclusion. Not every answer there has to be an introduction. You can directly write the, इस तरह से आप time manage करते हो exam में, to be very honest. If you ask me clearly, तो 20 question में there would be 4-5 questions which you absolutely don't know. Absolutely don't know. That's a fact. ठीक है, there would be some question which you know, which you properly know. So obviously it is always advisable to invest more time. तो आप एक इंडिविजुअल आंसर देख रहे हो, बट ऐसा होता नहीं है, आप लार्जली 20 क्वेश्चंस को एक साथ देखते हो। तो कुछ आंसर्स में हम टाइम लेकर अच्छा लिखते हैं, और कुछ आंसर जो आपको बिल्कुल ही नहीं आते हैं, जब पता ही नहीं है, तो फिर वो 2-3 मिनट में यू जस्ट नीड टू फिल द पेजेस, यू नीड टू राइट समथिंग सो दैट यू गेट सम मार्क्स, बिकॉज यू कांट अफोर्ड टू लीव द क्वेश्चन। एक तो ये होता है। दूसरा ये होता है, ट्राई टू प्रैक्टिस मोर, ट्राई टू एक्सप्लोर डिफरेंट वेज ऑफ राइटिंग द आंसर। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, जल्दी से एक फ्लो चार्ट बना के खत्म कर दिया तो पूरी बात लिखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, या बुलेट्स बना दिया, या इस तरह से टेबल बना के पॉइंट्स लिख के खत्म कर दिए, या एग्जाम्पल्स दे के खत्म कर दिया। कभी कभी आप इस तरह से भी यूज कर सकते हो। हर क्वेश्चन में जहां पे एनालिसिस बहुत ज्यादा नहीं मांगी गई है, तो आप 1-2 आंसर्स में कंक्लूजन को लिखना भी अवॉइड कर सकते हो। ठीक है, अभी क्या होता है, हम एक पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन को देखते हैं तो वी ट्राई टू राइट इट इन अ होलिस्टिक मैनर, इंट्रोडक्शन, कंक्लूजन, बॉडी, प्रॉपर, तो वो ऑटोमेटिकली टाइम कंज्यूमिंग हो जाता है। तो दिस विल कम विथ प्रैक्टिस, दिस विल कम विथ स्ट्रैटेजाइजिंग कि किस आंसर में ज्यादा टाइम देना है, किस में थोड़ा कम हम दे सकते हैं। तो इस तरह से मैनेज कर। तो जब पूरा टेस्ट लिखोगे, 20 क्वेश्चंस का प्रॉपर मॉक टेस्ट लिखोगे, तब देखना कि वेदर यू आर एबल टू कंप्लीट द पेपर ऑन टाइम और नॉट। यू विल गेट अ बेटर क्लैरिटी दैट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से राइट नाउ। Is that very clear? ठीक है, so on this note we conclude the lecture and I'm going to meet you next week. From first week of March we will be meeting in the offline setup. Till then just cooperate and let's just interact in the online setup. Is that clear? Because I'm not in Delhi right now. ठीक, so some issues, so I have to be in my hometown for another 15 days. So I'll meet you in the first week of March for the offline classes. ठीक है, Neha, the UPSC 2020 question would be the assignment question, one thing. Second thing, whatever has been done so far till regionalism, please revise it. ठीक है, I'll be meeting you next week. If you have any doubts, we'll take a. अब हमारा सिर्फ बचता है रेशियल इंटॉलरेंस, एथनो नेशनलिज्म, यूनिटी इन डाइवर्सिटी, वेरी स्मॉल टॉपिक, मैक्सिमम 1 hour. After that, I'll start with secularism. That will also take 1.5 hours. So next class में हो जाना चाहिए. उसके बाद I think we are planning to start with ethics. I'll just talk to the team. तो either we'll start with the ethics or I'll continue with the society. तो वो हम टीम से बात करके एक बार डिसाइड करेंगे. ठीक है, चलो, I'll meet you next week then. Okay, bye people. Have a nice day.